Hello, everyone. This is another episode of Cyber Science Lab podcast series on autonomous cybersecurity. My name is Dr. Tooska Dargahi. I'm an associate professor at Manchester Metropolitan University in the UK and your host for today's podcast. Before introducing my guest today, I would like to remind you of our upcoming workshop. Our first international workshop on autonomous cybersecurity, Autonomous Cyber 2024. It will be in conjunction with the 31st ACM Conference on Computer and Communication Security, ACM CCS 2024, on the 18th of October in Salt Lake City in the US. So in this episode, similar to the previous episodes, I'm going to concentrate on autonomous systems and autonomous cybersecurity. And as usual, we are talking with leading professionals in this field. So my guest today is Dr. Nikolaos Pitropakis. I hope I'm pronouncing well. He's an associate professor of cybersecurity and the head of the cybersecurity and systems engineering department at Edinburgh Napier University. Welcome to today's episode. Thank you so much for accepting the invite.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and your contributions in the field of cybersecurity and autonomous cybersecurity?
Sure. I started engaging with cybersecurity during my master's thesis. Back then, I worked on steganography, which seemed more interesting than cryptography. I followed up with my PhD focusing on cloud computing systems and their security risks. During my postdoc, I had the opportunity to work on domain name system security. And after I became a member of staff, I focused more on privacy-preserving techniques and on top adversarial machine learning in the scope of attacks against machine learning. So if we take into consideration that autonomy relies on AI and machine learning, that's how I am related with the subject.
Okay, that's perfect. So that perfectly is matching with my next question, which is, what is your definition of autonomous systems or autonomous cybersecurity then?
So to define the autonomous systems or the autonomous cybersecurity, we have to go to the root of the word, which comes from Greek and ancient Greek. This was defined as the right or even the condition of self-government. It has been used a lot of times throughout the centuries with many meanings, even the more I would say, philosophical meaning of self-government. In our case now, from my point of view, I would say that we imply a level of decision-making when it comes either to the device itself, when we're talking about a system, which can be something very complicated and something less complicated. And when we are talking about cybersecurity, autonomous cybersecurity, there, the decision-making in the scope of cybersecurity, either if we are attackers, I would assume to perform an attack, but usually in our field, it has to do with the defense. So how we identify, how we decide what is going to be the follow-up action in this arms race against the malicious parties.
Yeah, perfect. So basically, I can see lots of things are happening in autonomy in our everyday lives. So what do you think about it? How important are autonomous systems in our everyday life?
Well, at this point, they are utterly important in the sense that until a couple of years ago, we were using ML, but for specific systems, now AI, ML have invaded every aspect of our everyday life. Every possible device that we are using, our mobile phones, so next generation of operating systems, both Google and Apple are focused on AI. So they are trying to provide that autonomy, that decision-making that is supposed to assist us. The problem is that this decision-making might be influenced. And if it comes to be influenced by malicious parties, it means that at the end of the day, we either will not get the service that we would like to have, or we will get something worse, something that malfunctions, and something that eventually can threaten even the human life. For example, if we change the decision-making of our smartwatch when, for example, our heart rate is in critical levels, that can result in a malfunction that will not give us heads up when we really need it. And that way, we will avoid medical treatment and many other things can go wrong.
Exactly. So I think these days a lot of people are just trying to use all of these AI-assisted devices without thinking about what threats are there or how their data or how their information could be endangered by these systems. What are your thoughts about the threats against autonomous systems then?
The way we have approached it through my team and my students and several colleagues that we are working with, we have managed to prove that if there is access, and by saying access, we did some privileged insider, and they can be found. We still face this issue in our day since the birth of the ICT systems. Those insiders or those privileged entities can influence the training of every single system that we are using in our everyday life. So through the training, if the device gets a falsified understanding of the real world, then that leads to continuous and wrong decision making. And we cannot predict the results. So there are many domains that autonomy is used. Recently, a couple of years ago, we studied, for example, how it could influence stock prediction and, of course, the global economy behind that. So you can understand that literally sky is the limit as long as someone is privileged to change the training data set in a way that we like to call poisoning most of the times.
Yeah, well, basically, usually when we tell people that these devices can be threatened, they don't really understand what we mean until we tell them what are the impacts and what will happen to their data, for example, or to their systems. So could you provide a little bit of information on what impacts these threats have on our life or on our data?
As I said, it depends on the system. So the least I can think of is a wrong decision making, or maybe something that will not create too much trouble. For example, let's assume that we have an autonomous or a self-deciding spam filter. If it doesn't work correctly, then we will get some spam email through our account. However, if that has to do, for example, with remote evaluation of the health condition of a patient, or if it has to do with the cyber defense of our infrastructure, then things can get very, very complicated. And the more we introduce that autonomy and less supervision by the human factor, the more we open ourselves, we open our infrastructures to be influenced by those attacks. So the worst thing that I can think of, as I said before, is human life. And this is what needs to be protected. This is the greatest asset.
Yeah, exactly. So imagine in the scenario of autonomous vehicles, for example, if there is an attack to the autonomous system, then if the car stops in the middle of the highway or the accelerator goes, I mean, it doesn't stop even when you are trying to.
And it can get even worse. The scenario that you just mentioned is because of the electric vehicles that are being developed through the last few years, is something that we can think as a very realistic scenario, but it can be even worse. If you think of an LNG carrier, a ship that transfers liquid or gas, hitting something, crashing with another ship or crashing with a port or another object might mean instantly life-threatening conditions. And we are not going to discuss only about the crew, but every single surrounding.
Of course, this is why consideration of cybersecurity threats and finding solutions for those threats are really important. So what are your thoughts about the future of autonomous systems? Are you optimistic about having something good out of it?
Well, from the cybersecurity perspective, we always know that there is an arms race between the malicious parties and us trying to defend it. So the more intelligent techniques we identify for our defensive measures, they will come up with something else. But I like to admit that in this arms race, and taking into consideration how long it took the parties to approach this autonomy, trying to influence this autonomy, I remain optimistic that we are one step ahead. We should not stop working. We should still focus on our infrastructure, on protecting our assets, with the greatest being the human life. But it seems that we can achieve that. Okay,
that's perfect. Considering that you are working in this domain and you mentioned you have students working on this topic, I'm sure some of my audience may want to reach out to you to collaborate with you perhaps, or to get more information about your work. What is the best way of contacting you?
Given the fact that we are addressing different time zones right now, I would say email is the best way to communicate with me. I'm quite responsive. Usually less than a day is my response time to everyone.
Okay, that's perfect. Do you have any final thoughts or final notes on the topic?
No, I just want to ask our colleagues to contribute to our workshop, and I'm looking forward to the presentations that we will have.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time and for contributing to our workshop. So basically, we mentioned workshop again. I want to remind you that the submission deadline for the Autonomous Cyber workshop is July 8th, 2024. And Dr. Nick is one of our TPC members as well, who kindly agreed to have this discussion with me today. So in order to get more information about the paper submission information and other information about the workshop itself, please feel free to check out our website, and also don't forget to sign up to our and subscribe to our channel and our LinkedIn page in order to get more information about the upcoming events and perhaps more episodes of autonomous cybersecurity podcasts that I will have in the future. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you later. Thank you.